I'm Carly Tudo. I am a child life specialist. I've been working in child life at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota for 15 years now. I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old, Evelyn and Thomas. And I'm just delighted and very humbled to be on this panel with these other wonderful women.
I am Becky Chapel Herbert. I am a mother of four, have a background in counseling, but I am currently a stay-at-home mom to four lovely children and a set of twins, one of whom is a lymphoma survivor, and just celebrated his 1-year survivor anniversary, we called it. We, made it through cancer treatment with a set of twins, one who found his way to life support for 2 months during the journey and had a lot of ups and downs and no guidance with regard to how to manage twins during a 2.5-year cancer treatment. So hoping that, our experience may be able to help other people avoid maybe some of the pitfalls that we feel like could have been avoided with a little bit of advice.
Great, thank you, Becky. And how about you, Amy?
Hi, I'm Amy Graver, and Becky, congratulations on that wonderful milestone. So happy your son met the year anniversary. I'm also the mother of four. I have two other older children, Connor and Claire, and then my twins are my youngest children, twin daughters. They're Lauren and Emma. Lauren was diagnosed with a rare muscle-based cancer. It's called rhabdomyosarcoma when they were 7, so just about to enter 2nd grade. She went through about 3 years of treatment, and she died just days after they turned 10. Emma is now 14 and in 8th grade.
Thank you, Amy. And Carla, would you introduce yourself, please?
Thanks, Jennifer. I'm Carla Garrett, and I'm mom to a set of fraternal twins, Mackenzie and Xavier. And Xavier passed away 5 years ago in 2017, just weeks shy of his birthday. He was diagnosed with a brain cancer called anaplastic ependymoma when he was 8 months old. So my twins have grown up and lived with brain cancer treatment over and over again. And Mackenzie will turn 13 in 2 months, and she's in grade 7.
And I've had the pleasure of meeting Mackenzie, so I'm a big fan of Mackenzie. And Marcy, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Marcy Scher, and I have fraternal twins, Becca and Ian. And at the age of 7, Ian was diagnosed with a rare genetic disease called pontocerebrohypoplasia type 1A. Becca's mimicking me.
I'm not supposed to be out here.
And sorry, he passed away 5 months after their 13th birthday, and Becca will be 19 in 2.5 weeks. She is taking a gap year and will be starting her freshman year of college in the fall.
Thank you, everyone. I thought that we would kick off tonight by watching a short video from another mom of twins who Carly is familiar with. And just to bring the conversation around to hear what some of the topics that are unique to the twin experience are.
I think the twin factor is a little bit unique, especially with younger kids who have potentially never been separated. I mean, ours literally were in bassinets next to each other in the NICU. They came home the same day. I think there was one overnight that they maybe had not been together. And so that was so hard. So I think and then you bring COVID into this and visitor restrictions and things like that. So I think that first of all, we tried everything. I mean, I pulled out all the stops. We had, tried daily FaceTime calls. We tried anything I could think of to keep them connected because I was so worried about that. And a lot of it didn't work. There were some things though that did work. We found that instead of just having a FaceTime call, which especially with 2 3-year-olds, like their attention span is short, is that we did this during transplant, we had the same set of books in Molly's hospital room and in Emma's room. And so we would try to find times during the day, because bedtime didn't always work out, to read a story together. So one parent would be with Molly in the hospital, the other would be with Emma at home. We would have the same book. Sometimes we only got through a page, sometimes we got through the whole book, but it was nice they knew, and then like they could compare. I mean, we had friends that donated like the whole 2 sets of the whole Gerald and Piggy books, and so we'd say like, okay, what book are we going to read today? So we were doing something, or like sometimes when Molly was feeling better, I would get 2 different crafts from Child Life, and they could do them together. So we found that was really helpful. We got a little printer that could print from our phone, and so sometimes if Molly had something she wanted to show Emma, we would take a picture of it and bring it to Emma. So that was helpful. We also got these bracelets, actually. So these are back to school bracelets, I think they're called, and so they come with one for a parent and one for a child. So Molly chose blue and Emma chose purple, and so they each have one, and then John and I have them. And so we kind of use those as a way of, if you're missing mommy or daddy or Molly, this is a way to send the kiss or send love to them. And again, it was something tangible that they could see, which was really helpful. So I think that ended up being a very helpful thing. The book, A Kissing Hand for Chester Raccoon, also became really helpful for us, especially for Molly in terms of having separation anxiety. So again, everybody had ideas about how to keep them connected. Most of the ideas didn't work very well because of their ages and just how sick Molly was in the hospital, but some of them did, and so we kept trying. I think the other thing that was really hard for me about the twin factor is that I had a perfect comparison of what Molly used to look like. And Molly and Emma are not identical, but they look pretty similar, and so Molly was always bigger. She was the bigger twin, and so when Emma just skyrocketed above her, I was just so fixated on Molly's weight, and the team would say, Sarah, I know you're worried. I know you've got this comparison, but it's not that bad. And I was like, but she was always the bigger one. Like I had these images in my head, and then I had a healthy child that looked pretty much just like her at home. And so it was much more, it was constantly faced with that very visual representation of how much things had changed. So I think just acknowledging that is going to be something that is probably a uniquely difficult thing for parents of twins who look exactly alike or look even close to alike.
I think for me, Jennifer, I totally connected with she was the bigger twin, because that's what Lauren was. She was always like kind of 6 inches taller than Emma. And then in just having that healthy child at home to compare, I remember one of the oncologists, Lauren was having a symptom and a reaction to the drug, and we couldn't decide if it was a reaction to the drug. And she goes, well, maybe this is just like normal, like a normal part of growth. And it was like excess, perspiration or something. I'm like, no, it's not, because my other twin, I have other children and my other twin doesn't have this. So I know it's like chemo related, it's drug related. So I connected with that a lot.
How about any of the other panelists? Was having that comparison, just because the two are, born on the same day, they, you have these expectations, even I think within the boy-girl mix can be the same.
Yeah, it was definitely there. And because we were experiencing it as they were growing up, because they were babies. So it was constant comparison, right? And Mackenzie would be crawling and Xavier hadn't reached that milestone yet. And we knew that because of his treatments, he was held back significantly on reaching all of those milestones. So that was always kind of in your face, seeing the one twin meet those milestones and continue to, grow up, and then the other one much far behind, and knowing that they're twins, they should be, similar in track.
We had that same thing. Even though with Ian's disease, it was progressive, we saw him doing all the things that Becca was doing as far as the walking and being independent with different things. And then she kept going and he started, regressing and not being able to do things. And for us as well, we ended up having Ian repeat kindergarten. So once they hit kindergarten and first grade, they were in two separate grades as well. And that also at times had them in two separate schools. So it became, watching Becca do certain things and then wondering, is Ian ever going to do this, or where are we going to be? And even now, watching Becca do things, it's still hard wondering, where he would be. And when she graduated from high school, not having him there to do that with her, it's the same thing.
As parents, did you have conversations with your twins about this? Were they aware of it, or are they aware of it? And did you have a conversation with them about it? Like, do you think they were making comparisons?
My twins were young. When our son was diagnosed, he was 4, completed treatment when he was 6.5. And at that age, it's so hard to know how much they can process and comprehend about what's going on. I think that Nathan and Justin are my twins. Nathan was the one that had cancer. Justin, his twin, is just old beyond his years. He is an old soul. And he was understanding on a much deeper level more than I knew he was. But when you're so consumed by caregiving responsibilities and being at the hospital, when it comes to treatment, and especially a long treatment, like, ALL or AML, you really don't have the time to process that or to address it. I just remember I kept saying to myself at the hospital, like, we'll deal with that later. We'll deal with that later. My goal was just to keep my sick son alive at that point. And there really wasn't enough parent to go around to even address that, which is disheartening because you know that there's an issue to deal with, but you can't, no matter how much you want to. And I think that just complicates things because you feel guilty on top of feeling guilty and struggling. But then after the fact, I had some really tough conversations with my very young 5-year-old about his perception of what was happening. He was very aware of the magnitude and the potential mortality that his other half was dealing with. And he was understanding and emotionally just handling it more than any young child or older child should. And I wish, looking back, we had those conversations sooner rather than later, even though we didn't have the time. No one tells you what to do. I always say, like, there's no book. No one wrote, I didn't read the book because no one wrote it. And like, maybe we should write it. Because I remember, coming home, and this was after my son had survived something that he shouldn't have survived. And my 5-year-old said to me, "Mom, when Nathan was in the hospital, I used to ask to go and see him. And at the time, it was care providers, whoever was available. We were just constantly swapping parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, whoever could come, because we were at the hospital and we weren't coming home because our son was on life support, and you don't leave when you're in that situation." And this is an after the fact conversation, when our very young child said to me, "Mom, I used to ask to go see Nathan all the time and no one would take me. So I would go in my room and hide behind my chair and cry." He was 5. Like, no 5-year-old should ever feel that way, much less go through that alone. And I always said, as we were going through it, the only thing that could make an experience like this worse is going through it alone. And we had so much support because my husband and I had worked at the hospital where our son was treated. We were surrounded by support, both with our within our family circle and our friends, but also literally at the hospital. As hard as it was, there were people there for us. And my son didn't even have that. And he was the twin of the one that was in the hospital. And my heart breaks every day that I look back and think about that, because I can't undo it.
Yeah. So one of the things that each of you has said to me, and maybe Carly, you could speak to this a little bit, is that the uniqueness of the twin experience wasn't really addressed in its own, in the way that it deserves its own exceptional care for the situation by the providers that were helping you. That the twin was treated as a sibling, but not as that unique sibling. And you've each individually told me that. And so I want to move and speak a little bit to that. And maybe Carly, you could talk about a little bit about what you've done in the past with some of your families that you've helped through Child Life, and then also just what suggestions you would have for parents in this situation. All of you can sort of speak to this, to vocalize that and make it better known, so that, you know, as Becky said, it's not just the parents getting that support at the hospital, but they're also getting the support they need to push it downstream to their home and find the way to support those twins.
Yeah, I think before I before I even begin to offer, you know, suggestions, I have to, and I tried to share this earlier this evening with these wonderful moms, how humbling it is for me to consider the twin experience. You know, I've done I'm not overwhelmingly seasoned as a child life specialist. I've done it for 15 years, but Becky and I are friends, and in talking with each other about this, it was very, very eye-opening and very humbling. That's the word I kept coming back to consider how different the twin experience is. It's not just a sibling experience. And I don't think that was something that even though I've had twins that I cared for, I don't think that was something that I really, truly understood or really had considered in that way. And even as you ladies were first talking about, you know, that you're comparing them side by side, I think about, you know, as a parent, my kids are 2 years apart and I'm constantly comparing them. And I want to say, oh, that's something you do with siblings. You know, we all do that with siblings. But when you've got a completely, you know, other half, it's a unique kind of comparison. Or I know one of the things, Becky, when you and I talked, you talked about visiting and how, you know, when you go to think about, oh, you know, bringing the siblings to visit at the hospital, you would bring, you know, both boys, your twin and your older, and it, you know, you did that because that was when we were available and they could come at that time, but you didn't realize, you know, how the twins needed, how Justin and Nathan needed their time alone together, how having all three added a different dynamic. So just things like that, just in conversation and preparing for this tonight, was just eye-opening for me to think about how, wow, I really, as a provider, I need to be clued in. I need to know about the other siblings, and I need to know about the details of that relationship. You know, like, are they twins? And I need to really consider that in a really unique and delicate way when I think about how do we prepare them? How do we support them? You know, what do we want to know about them to sort of bring them into this whole kind of care as a family? So I don't know whether that kind of answers it. It doesn't, I'm not giving you a bunch of suggestions, but I'm really just, I really want to emphasize how again, eye-opening it is for me to consider as a provider, just the uniqueness of a twin experience, and that it just might need to look different. It might need to be thought of a little bit more specifically and not just grouped into sort of sibling support.
Yeah. Amy, I know this because I've obviously I know you and we talk, but also because of things you have written for Courageous Parents Network. But maybe talk a little bit about how you wanted Emma to understand the smells of the hospital and each of them to sort of know the environment that neither of them were getting to experience together all the time.
Yeah, so my twins had a different experience like than, for example, Carla's, because they had 7 years with no illness. So they had the same group of friends basically. They were in the same class until we split them up in kindergarten just to make the transition to first grade easier. But it was the same school, same everything. But when Lauren was diagnosed, all of a sudden she was thrust into a whole new world with all new people and mostly adults. And Emma was back home with our babysitter or in school with their old friends. And it was so important to me that Emma would know what Lauren's day was like. And Lauren knew what Emma's day was like, but for Emma to know what Lauren's day was like. And not just like, I wanted her to know the people that we were getting to know and talk about. I wanted her to know what it smelled like and sounded like and felt like. So I remember Lauren went to get a scan, and I brought Emma with on scan days. And I would kind of like either the healthcare person would get it or they wouldn't. And I would say, this is Lauren and this is Lauren's twin sister, Emma. And if I said that, what I meant was hold Emma in a special place in your heart because she's got just as tough a job as Lauren does. And when we went to the scan, I brought both girls into the room, like, here's where Lauren is going to lay. Do you want to touch the table? Here's where the technician is going to be looking at Lauren. And I would always say, Emma, do you have questions? Lauren, do you have questions? Just to make sure that she knew what it was going to feel like. And she would play out very differently from my other children. She was younger, but from my other children, Emma expressed a lot through play. So she made a radiation machine out of Legos. Her Barbies all had cancer. She was always like playing through scenarios with that. But and the other thing that I did was whenever Emma would approach me in the morning and say, I need to be with her today. And I don't know if it was Lauren telling Emma, I need you to be with me, or Emma telling Lauren, I need to be with you, or maybe Emma meant she needed to be with me. But it was always a free pass, like, and you always got to come because it was bigger than second grade or third grade or fourth grade. She always got to come with. And the day was always better when she came with because they could have this bond. They would both lay in the hospital bed. And Emma was always the more verbal of the two. And she would do all the chatting with the art therapist. And she'd be like, Lauren, we should try this craft, or we should do this, or can I have some of, let's play this. And so it was super important that they know each other's worlds and the people in their worlds.
Yeah. So Carla, I also sort of know, and this comes back to the video again and talking a little bit about the connectedness and just knowing Mackenzie and her big feelings and just, sort of touching on that point where Mackenzie really vocalized that. Could you tell us a little bit more about how she worked through that process and how you've helped them, or helped them then and even now with all of that and that connected intuition that they have for one another?
For sure. I definitely can relate a lot to what we just said about, always having them together at the hospital, because we were very adamant that things were better when they were together. But there were times when you couldn't be together, and they always were together. So when Mackenzie had to go to school without him because he was too sick or he was in the hospital, it was very challenging. We really needed to support both of them through that separation anxiety, because we knew there were times that it was just going to happen. So unfortunately, we didn't have the support right at the hospital. So we had to go outside of it. and find counseling for both of them to help them through that separation, because it wasn't just a typical sibling separation. They were a pair, they were one unit. And so we did that, and Mackenzie, had her own special person to help her through not being with Xavier all the time. And one of those, going back to the video as well, and some of the ways they connected, is we would get the same toys at home for Mackenzie that Xavier had at the hospital. So it was kind of a familiar thing. She'd go play with him with those toys that they loved to play with there, and then she could play with those toys at home. And then as well, through therapy, she learned the cord of love, and just kind of an imagery thing that she can imagine in her mind, that cord is connecting them both no matter where they are. And drawing that out on paper. So those were just, tactical things that we could do because we knew they couldn't always be together.
When you say the cord of love, I'm picturing that children's book, The Invisible String. Is that,
yes, it's
have you
very similar to
that
Yes.
concept of, connectedness no matter where you are?
Yeah.
Marcy, I also know from talking to you and actually also talking to Becca, even though it was years ago now, that twin intuition for one another played strong in your household. And just, I think, speak to that a little bit more if you can, just to give, I think, if there's providers with us tonight, just some greater insight just into how, and then all of you maybe can talk to it, how vital that is, and how it factored into either when you shared information or how you shared information or what went on.
Yeah, so I don't think I really realized that it was going on when it was happening. Looking back at things now, I can say, wow, that, she really knew this was going on, or Ian really knew this was happening. We had some pretty lengthy hospital stays, 3-4 months at a time. I don't know, with the kids who had the cancer treatments, how long, what they were or not. But when he was in the hospital for that length of time, he was in the PICU. So she was not allowed to visit him. We got a couple times where we got special permission for her to come up when he was going in for his trach surgery. We made sure that she could come up and see him because we didn't know if he would survive the surgery. We did a lot of the connectiveness. We had a journal that whichever parent was at the hospital would write in it with Ian, and then we would switch, and it would go home and they would write in it with Becca. And that's how we did a lot of the communication back and forth with them. And when it was time to make the decision of Ian getting a trach or not, he was intubated, and the doctors had pretty much told us that it was either the trach or we needed to try and extubate and let nature take its course. And we talked to both kids individually and said, this is kind of where we're at and this is what it would mean. And all Ian wanted to do was make sure Becca was okay. Make sure that she would be okay with whatever decision happened and that he wasn't ready to go to heaven. And Becca said the same thing, that he was too young. He couldn't go to heaven yet. So they really were in tune with that. And then right before Ian passed away, the Friday before, he passed on a Thursday, the Friday before, Ian had stopped eating. And when Becca came home from school, we told her that he really didn't eat that day. We're going to see how the weekend goes. He'd had some other times that this had happened. And she flat out looked at me and said, "Mommy, he's done. This is it." And I was just like, "Becca, we don't know that. He's had this happen before. You just don't know." She's like, "No, Mommy, I'm telling you, he's done. This is it." and we asked her if there was anything she wanted to do with him, what it was. And she gave us two things that she still wanted to do with him. One was to have a family day where all we did was sit in the den and have picnics and watch movies, which I told her I didn't know if we'd be able to do that. And then the other was to have we had an organization that did a lot of things for us as Ian got sicker, and they would do private movies where we would be able to go to the movie theater and we were the only ones in there. And she wanted to do that with him. And that was on a Friday. We were able to make that happen on that Monday, and Ian passed that Thursday morning. So she knew. She's like, this is just how it is.
Mhm. You know, I mean, I think all of the siblings have a sense that it is hyper vigilant to their brothers and sisters, but I do want to say in true respect that I think the twins have just an incredible bond that needs to be recognized, I think, by the people that are helping these families more than it is. And I know you as all moms all recognize it, and I imagine it challenged you at times too. In ways that probably felt a little bit unimaginable and unbearable at moments and overwhelming. So I appreciate you sharing all of that with us.
You know, you all talk about your kids, your healthy twin. You know, something we talk about a lot with Child Life is just how resilient kids are and how capable kids are. And you all are incredible women that have been braver than probably most parents have to be or have had to be. But you know, I think sometimes for us as adults, we're afraid to have the conversations, or we're afraid, you know, to let the other child come, or we're afraid to ask them these tough questions. You know, what do you want to do this last week, or whatever it is. But kids are so capable. And again, I know, you know, Becky, you and I had talked about that too, just how, I don't know if you'd be open to sharing, you when we talked about Nathan, when he came to visit, when Justin came to visit, and, you know, the nervousness about him coming to the hospital, and you know, can he handle it? Can he handle seeing all these tubes and seeing all these things? And just really how capable kids really are. And then the other piece of that, again, for me, from my perspective, in child life is, you know, we don't want siblings or the other twin to just be thrown in, you know, that there's really a way, and Amy, you alluded to some of this too, there's really a way to involve them and educate them and inform them, and in a really like age appropriate, developmentally appropriate way, so that they can process and feel prepared, and you know, kind of know what they need to know about either what they're coming into, or about what their siblings experiencing. And so I just, you know, as I listen to you guys talk, those are the things that I just think, you know it, and I want other providers to know it. I want other parents to know it, that kids are incredible. Like, your kids are incredible. They're so capable. They're so resilient. You just have to kind of help give them the tools to kind of take those steps into those big moments. And I love the way that you talk about how your kids did that. Like, anyway.
So, I just want to add to what Carly said, is that when we took Becca to the hospital and Ian was intubated and we were talking about him getting the trach, the child life specialist did come in, and she had a doll that had a trach, and explained to both kids together what it was going to look like, and how Ian wouldn't have the tubing and the tube going down his throat, that it would be, you know, in his neck, and it would help him breathe. And I think having that happen really helped both of them to truly understand. what was going on. And whenever anybody talked to Ian about his sister, he would make sure that they knew it was his twin. He corrected you. It wasn't us having to do it. When they would say his sister, Ian would be like, my twin sister. So they really do. It's a bond that we can't even understand as their parents.
I see you nodding, Amy.
Yeah, we were out to dinner on a like the last big vacation we went on before the summer before Lauren died. And so Lauren had lost all her hair, and we were in Gulf Shores, Alabama, and we were at a restaurant. And everyone thought Lauren was a boy because mostly she dressed in like hockey jerseys, and it was very like tomboyish anyway. But somebody noticed that she had lost her hair and came by and said, "How are you doing, buddy?" And Emma was incensed. And she said, she came up to me and said, "Can I go to the bathroom?" And then she went to the bathroom and she walked past that table and she came back and she goes, "Lauren, I stared at him real long and real mean for you." It was just like, do not mess with, don't call her buddy, and don't mess with my sister. Yep. So, and she's like all of, 9 at the time, but she was like, "I did it for you."
Mm-hmm.
Protectors to the end. Yeah.
Yep.
So we're gonna start bumping up, and I do want to leave some time for Q&A, but I want to say, first of all, maybe just ask the question, if there's one thing you wanted the audience to know about the twin experience that didn't already get said, please say it now, and then I sort of want to move on to some other topics that we haven't covered. But I want to first give all our great panelists that have all the wisdom to share, to if they have something else that I didn't bring forward.
I would just say find ways of allowing them to stay connected, because they go through life in tandem as one unit until this happens, and knowing how to function without their other half. Again, no one tells them how to do that, and they do things better together. So just find ways of allowing them to stay connected.
I was going to say, just trust your gut, because you are the only ones that know your kids and know your twins and know that relationship. And listen to them, because as someone said, they know more than you think they do. A lot of times when we would start to tell Becca things that were happening, she knew. I didn't need to tell her. You could just tell by looking at her that she already knew what was going on. They live it. They're living it too.
And I think, as Carly said too, that just acknowledging that special and different relationship between twins, I make a huge difference for the whole family unit when you're there, because it is different.
Yeah.
And for me, I think I just would always come back to the parity, like trying to make things equal. But when you have a sick child and a well child, it's like you need to make the normal special. So my time spent with Emma, when I was not in the hospital, I had to make the normal special. So let her stay up late and get some extra love from me and extra attention. And then for Lauren, I had to make the special normal. When she got home, she still had to do chores. She didn't maybe walk the dog, but she still had to fold laundry. She had to do things. So like as a twin mom, you're always balancing anyway. And then you get a sick twin, and then it's like balancing on steroids. But it's just trying to make the well child feel loved and the sick child feel normal, and trying to find that mix.
Yeah.
That is so beautifully said. I appreciate that. It's because I think, we always sort of encourage parents to, keep doing your parenting, keep your normal boundaries and your normal guidelines, and your, that's what your kiddos will expect. But then I also appreciate the way, I can't remember who had talked about it, that some days you just needed to let like things go out the window because them being together was the priority that day. I think just kind of navigating that balance, I imagine, is a whole different level of challenging as a parent. I think one of the things that we, from a provider perspective, that we want to encourage, knowing that your time is divided, whether you're just taking care of your twins or you've got other kids at home as well, no matter what, you're going to have other adults involved. There's grandparents, there's aunts and uncles, there's your neighbor, your friends, there's teachers. I think, Becky, you talked about when, that you had no idea the kinds of things Justin was experiencing, at home when he was with, grandparents, or, those little nuances. I think keeping in touch with the adults that are a part of your kind of tribe, like managing life. So making sure that they know, making sure that teachers know, hey, we're experiencing a real significant hospitalization, or, hey, this is going on, or this is coming up. And then, communication lines that way too, so that you've got, other adults' eyes on your kids, watching for things that might be kind of out of their norm, or, changes in their relationships at school, or changes in their sleep, things like that. I guess just to stay connected with your other adult, the other adults in your life that are helping you navigate this with your family, if that makes sense.
I want to sort of shift gears here a little bit and just also acknowledge that, for Carla and Marcy and Amy, you're now parenting your twin without your other twin. And that also brings a unique set of circumstances to the twin experience. And I want to take just a few minutes, I think, to talk about how you talk about that with your twins, if you don't mind, and how do you work through things like celebrating birthdays, because and talk a little bit about your own emotions around it too, and maybe tell us what you think is going on with your twin.
There's an organization called Twinless Twins, and I know I've talked to Carla about it, but that they've been very helpful for Becca and actually for me, because they're saying is once a twin, always a twin. That they're still twins. That hasn't changed. We follow Becca's lead when it comes to her birthday and what she wants to do or doesn't want to do. The one thing that we do is we do go to the cemetery to visit Ian on their birthday. But then the rest of the day is about Becca and what she wants to do or doesn't want to do. The milestones are hard, and we try to find ways to have him there, but then there's times that Becca will say that she needs to have it for her, that she sometimes feels that she lived kind of in his shadow for her whole entire life because of his illness. And she doesn't want to have to do that for the rest of her life. She wants to still become who she's supposed to be. And she's finding her way in how to honor him and have a legacy that's for her. So, I try to find how that legacy is for me, and I do things that will work for me, and I will include her in it. But then she decides what she wants to do. And I think the fact that she's, almost 19 is makes that a little different. She was older when Ian died compared to, for Amy and Carla, they were younger. And I think that plays a factor as well. But we try to follow her lead with what she wants to do and doesn't want to do. There was, one birthday, she's like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want family over for cake and ice cream. I just want to do what I want to do, and I don't want to do anything. And that's what we did.
Yeah, and I would say, it's very similar to that in our experience as well. But in terms of my own emotions, I sometimes really struggle because Mackenzie sometimes want to take that independence and break apart from that twindom, I guess you could say. But at the same time, I am unwilling to break that twin thing, right? Like that, they're my twins. And when she wants that independence away from that, I find it really difficult. But I mean, obviously we respect what she wants, and we've now moved to celebrating kind of his birthday, and he also died the same 2 weeks before his birthday. So we kind of have our sad day the day before, and then the day of their birthdays, it's all about Mackenzie, because that is how she prefers to have it. But in a way, then there's the guilt that we're not recognizing the other twin on that day. But just navigating those difficult experiences, and birthdays are really difficult in that sense for me emotionally, wanting to give Mackenzie that independence and herself, but also not wanting to break that twin bond.
Carla, I can so relate to that because I feel like I'm so bad about that. It like having my own emotions dominate. So for their birthday, I try to like celebrate Lauren in a different way. Their birthday's on the 13th. I try either the 12th or the 14th, just some Lauren and my mom time, and do like I'll go to the movies by myself because Lauren and I went to the movies a lot together. But on the 13th, I try to have it, focused on Emma. We do have, we'll have a cake, and Lauren's favorite color is turquoise, and we'll have something blue on Emma's cake. And whether that's a little heart, a candle, whatever. And we still sing to Lauren at the same time we sing to Emma. But it's super hard. Like there's, when you're going through cancer, there's anticipatory grief. I still have that. Like the other day I was walking the dog and crying about when Emma gets married because Lauren won't be in the wedding. I'm like, wow, am I working ahead? Like she's, but anticipatory grief about graduations, the first day of school, the last day of school, when she has a friend over, well, like Emma's friends with one of Lauren's friends now. And it's just like, I grieve the stuff that's not there. And it could be, to the stuff that's not here today, or the stuff that's not going to be here in 15, 20 years. So it's so hard to figure out. The balance is just so hard.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing all of that. I think just again, the struggle of the connectedness of the twinness, or whatever the word you used, Carla, which was great, is just so incredible. I mean, I know that feeling, Amy. I feel some of those same anticipatory grief feelings still around my son Ben and the markers, or so I think we all feel that in a certain kind of way. And I think as parents, who have lost children, that's going to be always omnipresent in what we're doing. But I think I think Carla said it's like being on steroids when you have twins with those feelings, because you did have those mirror images of the side-by-side birth. So I want to be cognizant of time. It's 8:54, and I want to give our audience time to do some question and answering. So if you have a question, so Ashley has just put one into the chat, and Ashley, I'd invite you to turn your camera on and ask it, but I'm happy to read it if you'd rather.
I currently am I'm sitting in bed, so I will not turn my camera on, but I can totally ask it. So I am a fellow child life specialist as well, and I work in the NICU. I've been here in the NICU for about 4 years. And we oftentimes have twins that pass, whether that's passing in utero or passing after they get to the unit and they have a surviving twin, or right now we have triplets where we have 2 and 1 has passed. And I just wanted to ask you guys, I know it's kind of a different scenario than what you guys have kind of gone through, but what are some ways that I can do to help honor these twins? One thing that we do with families' permission, if they want, is we place purple butterflies on the rooms of the surviving twin or surviving multiples. So other staff and other people know that they are a twin and that it's not just one single baby. But sometimes I ask families what they want to do to honor their twins, and they're like, that's a very hard question when they're just meeting this baby for the first time, or they're just getting to know them and they haven't lived a couple years together. So if you guys have any suggestions for me to help these families, it's something that I find myself in a lot and just want to be supportive to them.
One of the things that hospice did for us was and I guess it also depends on what you can and can't do. They made a thumbprint necklace for Ian's thumbprint on a pendant, and gave it to Becca. And they actually did that when he was still alive, and he gave it to her. So she still wears it and has that. I guess, like, if you can do maybe like a plaster of like a hand or a foot, so they have that as well. If they wear something, let them keep whatever the child's wearing, or the blanket, just, so they can have that together. Or things that I can think of.
One of the things I did was put up a lot of pictures. I feel like when you get to a certain point of a hospitalization where things become very depersonalized, I needed everybody to know that Nathan was a person beyond just the case that they were seeing on paper, and the non-functional person he was laying in the bed. So I had tons of pictures of him and Justin, as well as him and his other, brother, in his room, so they could see the person he was and know that he was also a twin. So when people came into the room, they commented on the pictures all the time. And I think just giving light to the personality behind a person, especially when they're incapacitated, it just helps, the parents just feel like that part of them is being acknowledged and recognized.
I mean, I would just say through my work at CPN, and also just from the fact that how we started this conversation together as a group, when I was getting to know all of you, in talking about this event, was just to hear that the hard part was that no provider actually acknowledged that they were twins. And if you can keep just acknowledging the situation and do it in a way that feels natural and normal, and you're also going to send the message to that family that it's okay to talk about your deceased child, that it's part of what your unit is. And the more that you can embrace that for them, the better they are going to come out being able to do it for themselves. Megan, would you like to ask your question, unmute and ask, or would you like me to read it?
Okay, I can do it. Okay. Sorry. So I have identical twins. They're almost 18. They'll be 18 in a few weeks. And we are like, all their stuff is still at a children's hospital. No siblings allowed. We're still dealing with like super COVID restrictions. And both of my twins had brain surgery last year, and we're looking at maybe another one this year. And it was so hard. Not necessarily the length of time that they're apart, but it's such a major thing. Like brain surgery is, and they've both been through it. So they know that the other is, because they have that bond, they have that connection. They know the other is completely terrified, and they understand that in a way that I can't. And I don't know, maybe I'm making it more of a big deal than they think. I just feel like it's a huge deal that they can't be together. Like, how did anybody have older twins that couldn't I just find it very difficult, like looking in the mirror with my twin and seeing my other twin standing in the driveway, just falling apart, sobbing. And I can't, like, you need to be with the one that's going to have surgery, of course, but how do you manage not being able to split in two? Like, nobody's going to comfort your kid like a mom. That's what I always say. Like, nobody's going to comfort my kid like I am, because I'm their mom. No one can do it as well as me. Like, how do you manage that, like, despair with the other kid and just having to leave them there?
So
Special accommodations at all?
No, they're not doing anything. They're not interested in doing anything. Like, we just do FaceTime, like after surgery, like that's all we've been able to do. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I know Sarah, she was the one that did Dr. McCarthy, the video at the very beginning of this. Their twins have gone through treatment during COVID. And I know her as a professional first, and then also as a fellow cancer mom second. So we've had very frank, intimate discussions about their journey and their struggles with that. I don't think there's a good answer, but she would be a really good person to tap into for that, because they've been fighting that battle through the entire duration of COVID.
It's awful.
The only thing that they really found helpful was to really advance their request to have the twin at least come to the hospital maybe after surgery, was to elevate that request as high as you need to within the hospital to get the twin special privileges to come and visit their twin.
I didn't even know that was an option. So that actually does help. Thank you. That actually helps me feel a little better. So thank you. I didn't even know that was a thing. So I will definitely be doing that.
Keep asking and keep advancing it to higher levels of administration until you get an answer and really justify your cause. Someone has to have a heart at
Right.
some point.
Yeah. That's
Even
true.
if it's a brief visit, it makes all the difference from what I've learned just in talking to Sarah.
Yeah.
And Megan, I would just keep asking whomever I could. I would ask the chaplain. I would ask to see a psychologist. I would ask to see the nurse manager. I would ask to see the hospitalist, and just say, can we figure out a way to make this happen? Maybe there's a common area where, you know, your sick daughter can go and your other daughter could join her, or it's through a window where your sick daughter can still be like isolated and your well daughter can see her in person. But I would keep asking, because like no would not be an answer I would take.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, very recently for us, last week or the week before, the hospital that my daughter is treated at most often, they just relaxed their visitation policy, and children can now visit. So her siblings would be able to visit, but she was in the PICU. And so there's no kids under 12 typically allowed to visit in the PICU. And we talked to the nurse manager, and she actually arranged for our other 3 children to enter through a side door so that they weren't walking through the whole unit. And she made it happen. So I definitely encourage you to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
The other thing that I think about, you know, Megan, as I think about the way that these other moms have talked about, you said something like, maybe it's just me, or maybe it's how I'm perceiving it. And you're so sweet to just even say that out loud, whether it is or isn't. But I think there's something to be said for, you know, knowing that the way that we cope may be different than the way our spouse copes, may be different than the way my child copes, and so I think that's always a good radar to have up. Is this something I need, or is this something that they need? And then I think the other thing that you know, all of you women have done so well is, and I think, Marcy, you maybe talked about it the most because your kiddos were bigger, or older rather, but, you know, asking your kids, what do you need? Like, what do you need from each other? You know, what ideas do you have? You know, let's be creative. Let's think about, you know, let's hide something in their to-go bag that is special from you, you know, that's going to show up the day of surgery, or you leave something in their room anything. But, you know, I don't know, Megan, your kiddos, maybe they maybe they have some insight, just really to involve them to say, what do you need from each other? What ideas do you have for each other? To just really empower them in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. Definitely given their ages, because they're going to be 18 any day now. We're doing our last, well, hopefully no emergencies. We're doing our last hospital stay starting on Friday. And this will be the last one where they're under 18, but still they're going to stay at Children's until they're at least 21. So it's still, I even asked, I'm like, we're so close. And this is just a epilepsy stay. It's not like a big, and her sister is like, well, that's kind of annoying that I can't go. But I feel like the brain surgery was like such a monumental, like, what do you mean I can't go? And I'm like, I don't, her dad can't even go. Nobody, I can go, period. End of list. So, but I think maybe at this point it'll be going up the chain a bit.
I would get to an administrative level is just keep pushing, talk to someone higher up. Yeah. Especially now, I feel like we've talked to a lot of people at different institutions and they have really relaxed COVID restrictions. I know Sarah McCarthy is currently at Dana-Farber with her daughter, and now the twin is allowed to come and visit. So if they're doing it at Dana-Farber, I feel like other places need to at least entertain the option.
I agree. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Yeah. They don't even wear masks to school here. Come on. Are you kidding me? And we're not letting our teenage kids visit one another after brain surgery. That's insane. Yeah. That's a great point, actually.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to say that we could probably go on for another 2 hours on this topic, because I know Marcy and Amy and Carla and Becky and Carly, you all know that we didn't cover half of the things that were on our little list of paper. So we'll definitely have to do it again. I really appreciate the input that you all gave on behalf of Courageous Parents Network. And again, we will be sending out a recording of this. Please feel free to reach out to me at jennifer@courageousparentsnetwork.org, or connect@courageousparentsnetwork is always on our website. I would be happy to be a segue between, if you guys want to ask questions of one another, or as we put together more materials on the twin experience, which we're hoping to do. Please do be on the lookout for Amy's blogs. They appear once a month. She has written about the twin experience a couple of times for us. So she is currently one of our blogger in residences. So please be on the lookout for that. And then if you haven't already checked it out, Carla has a blog. Both Carla and Marcy have a blog on our website. And Carla has published a lovely, lovely, lovely book that everybody should look into. It's a guided journey helping your child understand end of life. So it's beautiful, beautifully illustrated, and so you can find that information on our website, but we'll put it in the follow-up email. But thank you very much, everyone. And we'll sign off.